Our next top story has it that Nigeria's inflation rate jumped to 33.2%, according to the most recent figures released by the National Bureau of Statistics (NBS) for the month of March 2024, in comparison to the 31.7% reported in February 2024. This indicates a 1.5% gain. In March 2024, the rate of inflation increased more slowly than it did in February 2024 by 1.80%.
The cost of electricity and housing, together with increase in food and drink, contributed to March's inflation. The headline inflation rate rose from 22.04% in March 2023 to 11.16% on a yearly basis. In addition, the headline inflation rate for March 2024 was 3.02%, down 0.10% from 3.12% in February 2024. Joining us to discuss this is our economic analyst, Segun Sopitan. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. In layman terms, there are a lot of numbers that have been going on. In layman terms, what exactly is the state of Nigeria's economy?
Crisis. If you're just looking for one word, we're in a crisis. We're in an economic crisis, in a situation where inflation is threatening to spiral out of control. That's one. Where growth is reducing. That's two. So if you look at the GDP numbers for 2023, growth has reduced over the last 3 years. That's two. Where exchange rate is volatile. Fortunately, we're seeing some improvement in that regard. That's three. And then interest rates are, again, I think the word would also be volatile. So right now, the Nigerian economy is in a state of flux. There's a lot of movement happening in all directions. So it's a crisis. And you can see the fact that we're handling a crisis and managing a crisis in the policy actions from government. There's so many things going on at the same time. You're increasing interest rates, you're looking at raising some taxes, and all of that. So there's so much going on. The CBN in particular has thrown out a flurry of guidelines and circulars in the last 2 months. And that tells you that they're really, really grasping and looking for answers. So in layman terms, things are looking very rough. And I don't think any Nigerian, the average Nigerian on the street, needs to be told this anyway. They can feel it in their lives. The most recent intervention from government is also a part of, the factors leading to this crisis that I talk about, where we have increased tariffs. Now, very interestingly, we say it's for Band-A people, and the NERC and the DISCO say they represent just about 15% of the consuming public. I may beg to differ, because from my own personal experiences, the tariff bands are not determined, and this is very important for Nigerians to understand. They're not determined by your economic, demographic and economic grouping, where you belong. They're determined by feeder pillars, which supply power to communities. So what the NERC/DISCOs have done is to categorize whole swaths of geographical location as upper income locations, and they're supplying power to those places at 225 naira per kilowatt hour. Now, in those places, you have a representation of all demographic groupings in those places, probably in equal proportion, if not a bit skewed. In fact, what am I saying? It's not in equal proportion. Even in those so-called high-income communities, the population of poor people there far outweigh the population of the middle class and the upper income Nigerians.
Let me just help with that, and maybe you can continue. When you say the population of poor people, you might also be referring to the new reality that Nigerians have had to deal with, since the coming of this administration, because people who weren't seeing themselves as poor, 2 years ago, are currently now, maybe accepting that they're poor. So there's definitely more poor people
1000%.
living in these areas that are termed Band A areas, right?
1000%, Osarogie, even when let me mention some places, Magodo, you say, oh, Magodo is middle income on the mainland, maybe upper middle income, maybe Antony Village, Bagada, those places where people, the middle class, tend to live. Let's leave out Banana Island and the rest. And even in the likes of Banana Island, people are impacted. Now, as you rightly say, the income of people have suffered serious hits in the last 9 months. And people that ordinarily would have described themselves as comfortable are actually struggling. But beyond them, I'm even saying that in every single one of those communities, including, let's say, Lekki Phase 1, the number of people that are in Lekki Phase 1 and are poor are more than the number of people that are middle income and upper income. Because those people, for every single household, if you count the number of Nigerians living in that household who are members of that household and can be described as upper income and rich, they are serviced by multiple domestic help and the attendant services that they need provided to them. And those people live in those communities as well. There are shanties in every single one of these communities, including Banana Island. Yeah. So when we now talk about Band A, what we find is that what we're actually doing is that we're pushing the inflation numbers higher again by a significant quantum, because the number of people that are affected by this policy, unlike what the government is trying to describe, will be significant. So I went on a drive, in my neighborhood around Ogba here, and I went on the street to buy something. The woman that is selling, this is just a small shop, she's on Band A. And I noticed because all her lights were off. So I asked her, Madam, is there no light? And she says, oh, there's light, but I can't put it on because when I bought 1,000 naira, these people buy 1,000, 2,000 naira worth of credit, per transaction. That when she bought 1,000 naira, she had only 4 units. So what is 4 units going to do for her? So she had to turn everything off and all of that. And this person is somebody that is a petty trader. And we're saying that Band A is, is for. So anyway, so the point I was just trying to make is that the issue of inflation, the issue of economic crisis is being compounded by some of these policy pronouncements that clearly have not been carefully considered in terms of the impact it will have on the general economic climate. So we really need to do something about this.
And of course, I can relate entirely, because, 10,000 naira, 20,000 naira, that used to be the average amount of money that will be spent by a very, middle income person before, would probably get them, 200 units, on the average, 150, 160 units. But now is, 10,000 naira is only going to get you 40 units. So, you have to then double or even triple the amount of money you spend on electricity every month without having an increase in income, and that's the reality. So I want, that you share with us, there's a bit of confusion with the gain in the naira, while we're seeing an increase in inflation. So Nigerians are, similarly celebrating that the naira is now about 1,000 naira. Maybe it would, get to 900 naira at some point, maybe not. But at the same time, we're talking about inflation. Is this, a fake celebration that we're having? Do you expect that in the next couple of weeks or maybe months, Nigerians will be hit with the reality of what really is going on?
Yes, I think it's not necessarily fake. The appreciation of the naira is it's a good thing, and I think from the signals that I've seen so far that it will be sustained, and we will get to below 1,000 naira. I think that's the objective of the CBN. Now, the thing is that when they do get to below 1,000 naira, let's say, for example, 900 or let's say 800 naira to the dollar, official and parallel rates, the measures that need to be in place to ensure that we don't get a reversal, and a quick reversal at that, how are those things going? What's happening with foreign portfolio investments? What's happening with foreign direct investments? What's happening with diaspora remittances? Because these are the 3 sources of supply and liquidity to the markets in the short term, before we then start talking about our export capacity and all of that. So if the CBN is gaining ground with those 3 sources of liquidity, then we will see this sustained, and that's a good thing. Now, what about the impact on inflation? I think that, first of all, there are two things at play. One is that there's a lagging effect. It will take some time for the pass-through effect of these gains that we're seeing in the value of the naira to transform into impact on, touchable things that we can touch and feel on the streets. In terms of prices, it will take a few months.
In the interest of time,
Yes.
because we've really run out of time for the conversation, how much time do we need to wait to see this being translated into impact in the economy?
I think the two measures, the money supply issue, which the CBN is tackling aggressively with MPR rates, and the revaluation of the naira, you should begin to see a reduction in inflation rates in the next 3 to 4 months. So we're talking maybe June, July, August. By then, we should start seeing inflation rates slow down. The prices may not come down, but the rate of increase will reduce. Maybe we'll find ourselves at the current price ranges for the foreseeable, near-term future before we can then begin to see reduction in prices if these policies are sustained. So I think a couple of months we should begin to see, but expect inflation rate to still go higher over the next two months or so. Yes, you will still see it go higher. I'm sorry, that's the reality, because it takes time. It takes time for these things to walk through.
All right. Thank you for sharing with us your thoughts this morning. We hope that you are wrong, that this inflation...
I hope so too. I hope so too.
We hope.
Thank you, Sopitan. Thanks for stopping by. See you again. All right.